Kevin Garnett
Yeah.
and what's his name? And, the guy who's on the Timberwolves right now. Carl, Anthony. Anthony, yeah, I think he came straight.
I didn't know that.
I thought so. I mean,
No, he didn't.
No?
He was saying
He was a 1 year at Kentucky.
yeah, exactly. Because he played with what's this?
Sons to Booker. Devin Booker.
Yeah. I think they played together.
way.
Yeah, so he was 1 year.
All right, welcome this evening. We're going to start tonight off with our recognition, and for that, for student recognition, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Funk.
Thank you. So we have, as I think we'll show on the screen here, members of our Stillwater Area High School Chess Club placed first and second in the Minnesota Scholastic Championships. So what I would like is to have Owen Pelletier and Jonah Bailey come on up, and you guys come up and stand in front of your picture on the screen there. And then Tori Crafton, why don't you come on up too? Just come stand right in front of the screen so everybody can see
right
you.
up here.
We got you on video there, but now we get to see it live.
Sounds great.
So after 6 games of play, Owen was awarded first place, and Jonah finished second place in their category. And so they're here tonight. We got their coach here tonight. Tori, you want to tell us a little bit about the experience and what these guys had to go through?
I actually didn't even go to the tournament.
Okay.
They come to my rooms on Friday afternoons with about 10 or 15 kids and play, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of energy. But this was actually, these guys just kind of did it on their own along with one other student, and it was pretty much all day Saturday and all day Sunday. They played, these games can last up to 3 hours. So they were there for a full day Saturday, full day Sunday, and Owen was just telling me that he was pretty exhausted at the end of playing all day. So pretty amazing what these guys did. They're really fun to play with. And Jonah's kind of the one who kind of got the club going at the start of the year. Just really quick, I don't know how long of a story you want, but the way the club kind of got going is I was doing a little introduction with my students and asking my students who the most influential person in their life was. And Jonah wrote down on his card that his most influential person was his chess club or his chess coach from Belarus.
Oh,
So he's kind of got a coach on the side, and and then we
Very
started
cool.
talking, and he wanted to get the club going, and that's kind of how it all got started. So.
Very neat.
So you guys want to tell a little bit about the experience? Or
Sure. I'll go first. So, I mean, first off, that was my, I believe, 4th tournament, and this was your first. It was, I mean, I love the tournament setting. We went to St. Thomas College. It was a really big place. There's a ton of people there. I believe there was like 300 of us competing,
Wow.
300 kids, grades K through 12. So there was multiple sections. We were in the open section of the highest, which was the high school section. It was, there was 4 rounds on Saturday, basically just like back to back to back, and then 2 on Sunday, which were longer games. And on Saturday, it was brutal because between rounds 2 and 3, which were some of my hardest rounds, I only had like 10 minutes between them each just to rest and like
Wow.
try to have a snack before I was back in the playing room against a new person. Which I'm really happy with how I did. I mean, it's brutal because you're sitting there playing for hours, you're like focusing, you're just like, you're trying your best. And it was, I mean, I love it. It's so much fun because you're just there with a bunch of people. When you're done with your games, just go and like chat with them, maybe play a few friendly games. We had another friend from our chess club, friend Paul, who was there with us, and we all sort of just like hung out and went over our games, and it was really fun. I really liked the game.
Cool.
Jonah, anything you want to add?
I agree with most of what you said. Hopefully, you said a lot. It was also very quiet. It was a little nerve-wracking at the start. I was a bit quicker, so I ended a bit quicker. In one of my games, my opponent only had 2 minutes, and I would have like 45 minutes. Played a little quicker. That might have led to my downfall in one of the games, but probably should have used more time. Probably would have won those games.
Yeah, that's the mistake I made in my first few tournaments where I had so much time. And in this one, I actually got down to like 10 minutes. I used a ton of time to think.
Should have used more of my time.
Yeah,
Overall, it was awesome.
Yeah, both of us ended up in our tournament. We both won 4, drew 1, and lost 1 in our
Okay.
games. So out of the 6 games, I believe, the only game I lost was my 4th round game, which was at 7 o'clock at night. And after like playing for 3 rounds, I was just dead. I just played something silly and like I just ended up losing I got a bad headache. It was brutal, so I got a lot of rest after that.
Congratulations.
Parents want to come up, get closer, take pictures, so we can just stand here and. Tori, come on over. Let's get-
Can I ask really quick while your parents come up, how long have you been playing chess?
Oh, I have been playing for a bit over a year now, and I actually do not have, well, like seriously playing, I actually do not have a coach. I'm self-taught.
Wow.
At least in the sense of, like, actually playing, because my dad over there, he did teach me how to play a while ago, but like I'd play like 1 or 2 games a year.
Okay.
And, like, I knew how the pieces move, and it was kind of a funny story. So my friends were like, hey, there's this online thing called chess.com, like you can go and play on here. So we created accounts and just played a bunch. It's like, hey, you know, play chess? I'm like, yeah, no, play chess. Play chess, ooh. And so we went and played, and I was like, oh wow, this is really fun. And I actually kind of want to try to get good at this. So I just ended up playing more and more, and it kind of just turned into an addiction. I've been playing ever since. So.
Very cool, very cool.
We got our official
All right,
photographer here.
Great. Yeah.
In just a little bit, and everybody say rook takes pawn.
Takes time. It's really creative.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations to both of you, and thank you for taking the initiative to start this club. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad he did.
Yeah.
Go to check it out Friday afternoon. Come anytime.
All right, yeah.
All right, great work.
Thank you. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to our public comment. We have one speaker this evening. If it's Catherine Hobbs, if she wants to come up. Catherine Hobbs? Just while Catherine's walking up, I'm just going to read the public comment expectations. The school board encourages community input. While comments and questions are welcome, law prohibits the board from discussing concerns about individual employees or students in a public meeting. The board will not deliberate, discuss, or engage in conversation with speakers. However, the board may ask administration to review the concerns presented. Speakers must present their testimony in a respectful manner. Vulgarity, character attacks, malice, or specific complaints identifying staff or students by name or implication will not be permitted. We will stop the proceedings immediately if employee or student privacy issues are raised and direct the speaker to forward comments regarding individual employees or students to the superintendent. So welcome, Ms. Hobbs, and your timekeeper is here.
Thank you. Thank you, Board. I'm just here to talk about the GLSENA organization. I'm just concerned about it. Last year, we were just concerned that parents weren't notified, but after looking into it more, I'm just concerned that it's not student-led, but an overtly political organization. I have a quote here from a GLSEN conference in Atlanta. The fear of the religious right is that the schools of today are the governments of tomorrow. And you know what? They're right. And if we do our jobs right, we're going to raise a generation of kids who don't believe the claims of the religious right. I mean, we can debate all day what ideas are held by all of these people, but I just want to point out again that being apolitical and teaching kindness are not mutually exclusive. And for all the news slant, we don't know, in fact, if transitions like these are good or in children's best interest. It's highly debatable. You guys have actually heard from a detransitioner at a prior school board meeting. And I encourage everybody who is watching this to look up the hashtag detrans and look at their stories. When most kids don't end up transitioning as adults, I'm not sure that it's something that's good to push on these kids. Helping our kids be good citizens, which is a lot of what you guys do, is not a bad thing, but helping them be progressive citizens is not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I signed up earlier today online. It should be in your system.
Well, we'll look into that, but come forward, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Mike McCarthy. GLSEN describes itself as an education network that promotes LGBTQIA culture in schools beginning in kindergarten. On April 14th, an annual GLSEN Day of Silence will again promote its LGBTQIA multi-gender fluidity beliefs to our nation's kindergarten through 12th grade students. A day set aside to elevate and celebrate GLSEN's divisive and controversial belief system is a day of divisive and controversial activity. Parents should be emailed and notified on their school calendars of this adult-led nationwide elevation of one belief system over another. Substantial number of parents believe that their children are either a boy or a girl, and that is a fixed reality. Substantial number of parents foster in their children a worldview in which heterosexuality is the norm. Substantial numbers of parents embrace binary heteronormality and adult family formation as good, loving values which they imbue in their children. Substantial numbers of parents believe that these things are an essential part of their religion, and they teach these religious beliefs to their children. These parents do not want Stillwater area schools to teach their children contradictory beliefs. Simply put, they do not want you to save their children from their family's beliefs. So what accommodation, if any, can these parents believing in binary heteronormality expect from Stillwater Public Schools? We're not asking much. How about two very modest actions so parents are forewarned and able to discuss in advance with their boys and girls their family's belief about the nature of being a boy or a girl? We're asking two things. Place the GLSEN-sponsored Gender Sexuality Alliance's LGBTQIA+ Day of Silence on the school calendars so parents can access it. Send an email to these parents with the link to the organization so there can be no confusion or misrepresentation about what the Day of Silence is all about. The board can do this. You can do it tonight. Whatever action or inaction the board picks will answer the question, what accommodation can these parents expect? So I'd encourage you that this is the time to do in open what you're proud to be doing. If you're proud to do it, be seen doing it. In the past, last year, there was a misrepresentation made that this is a child-led activity. This is a nationwide adult-run action. They put out the Educator's Guide for your teachers to use in the Day of Silence. The guide includes curricula. Says educators across the country will spend the day speaking in every space, online and offline, in defense of the rights of LGBTQ. It is critical more than ever for adults to loudly claim that this is the cause. They have curricula guide, they have films and materials. This is not being led by kids, and I would appreciate it if you'd stop pretending that that is the case. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Look forward to seeing what the board does in its actions.
Thank you. With public comment concluded, we will call the meeting to order. Joan, roll call.
Director Huckert?
Here.
Director Kelsenberg?
Here.
Director Petrie?
Here.
Director Porbenny?
Here.
Director Thelander?
Here.
Chair Sherman?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Great. Director Hockert seconds. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, raise your hand and say an aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We'll begin this evening with our student reports.
Yeah, I can start. I have our sports report. Girls basketball finished fourth at state. Adapted floor hockey won the Consolation Championship in their first state tournament last weekend. Tonight, our speech team is competing in section finals. Nearly all of our spring sports have begun their training. Both lacrosse teams will start next week. And then I have our student update. After a much-needed break, students are gearing up for the end of the quarter. With AP tests and ACTs approaching, the priority has been on studying. Many students are excited for the upcoming 9-10 formal and prom and can't wait for spring sports and other activities to start as it warms up. There are many fun spring events for students at the school, such as the school production of Newsies this spring and Spring Coffee House. As the new season of spring rolls in, many students are just excited to finish up the year.
Any questions for our students? Okay. Thank you for that, and we'll go to our superintendent update.
So tonight, I am going to provide a legislative update to the school board and the community. I think a lot of folks had high hopes that with the united government in place that we'd get some things done at the legislature this year. Unfortunately, I think this is one of the potentially most damaging sessions I've seen since I've been a superintendent, and that's been for quite a while. So there was a survey that went out to a number of school districts statewide. 120 of them responded, representing 390,000 students across the state of Minnesota. And they said, here are some mandates that are coming in various processes throughout the legislative system right now. And we would like you to share with us what the impact would be on your organization. So what I'm showing you today are statewide averages on what these unfunded mandates will cost our school systems and drive many of them, most of them, probably all of them, into statutory operating debt or bankruptcy. So the first one, $153. ADM means average daily membership. That's basically per student. $153 per pupil. There's a proposal to shift teacher retirement from full retirement at 65 to age 60. This would cost the district, as I stated previously, $153 per ADM. I'll give you the total roll-up of the impact here at the end here. So that's concerning financially. Next slide. There is a bill that would set non-certified staff at a minimum wage of $25 per hour and require school districts to pay 100% of single health insurance premiums and 85% of family health insurance premiums, and it would also require the district to pay 50% out of maximum out-of-pocket costs to be covered by the school district. Those are all incorporated into those two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, totaling about $953 per student. Paid family and medical leave. This would basically require organizations to provide 6 days of, this is a different one. This would require businesses to allow every employee of up to 24 weeks off per year, 12 weeks paid medical leave, 12 weeks paid family leave. Like unemployment insurance, employees would pay into a state fund via an increase in payroll taxes to fund the program, and those employees then would receive 90% of their pay while they could be gone up to 24 weeks a year in a paid status. The other concern about this bill, which is not even figured out financially, this does not include the cost of the substitutes for those employees who are gone. So if we have an employee who's gone for 12 weeks or 24 weeks, we have to hire somebody to replace them. That's not in the cost of this proposal. Earn safe and sick time. This would allow people another 6 hours a year that they could use, or 6 days a year that they could use to recover from an illness, care of a sick family member, or because of a weather-related or school closure. $505 per ADM for additional teacher preparation time. It takes preparation time out of the collective bargaining agreement, which we have with our teaching union, and it mandates more minutes of prep time, which more minutes of prep time means we have to hire more staff because our teachers are doing more preparation. So the total cost of these new unfunded mandates is $1,675 per student. The steps and lanes that we are contractually are part of our contracts are about another $178. So we are looking at an anticipated increase of mandated funding with steps and lanes of $1,853 coming forward. Next slide. Here's the potential revenue, and I just got a news flash before the meeting started. We were thinking it was going to be 5%. I just saw two omnibus bills out of the legislature, 4%. So, but we'll go with the 5 here. So we're looking at a total of $841 new dollars in total revenue, minus the, and I took the steps and lanes out of here, minus 1,675 new unfunded mandates. If this legislation goes forward, districts will be facing a funding gap of $1,000 per pupil. This equates to a shortfall for Stillwater for $8.5 million annually moving forward. So when we're talking about inflation of, 8%, 7%, 9%, and then we are saying, oh, by the way, we are going to shortchange you $1,000 per pupil because of these mandates, this puts a huge financial burden on every school district in the state of Minnesota. That is the level of activity that is going on with the one-sided government we have currently at the Capitol. So I cannot say, I have never seen anything like this. I think districts were very hopeful that we'd be receiving the new revenue of somewhere around $800 per pupil. No one ever thought we would be seeing these kind of mandates moving forward. So I cannot encourage board members enough, members of our community. We need to reach out to our legislators and stop this before we drive ourselves off a fiscal cliff. Thank you.
I appreciate the update, and it's something that I know we've all been emailing legislators about and having conversations about. So I also encourage the community to reach out to legislators, because I think that the more people that are emailing and communicating this and sharing this, the better for our students and for our district. It's frightening. It really is. So I appreciate the honest and candid update. Any questions from the board?
You didn't mention anything about class size that is now
Yeah.
being considered to roll into that omnibus bill. Can you address that for a minute?
So there's two different pieces regarding class size. Class sizes historically are management right that, okay, we determine our class sizes. A lot of it's driven by our budget. And so this is something that we determine based upon what we can afford as a school district, and we establish those class sizes. The omnibus finance bill that just passed, that just are going forward right now are stating that class sizes need to be negotiated with the bargaining units. So we would have to sit down and negotiate the class sizes. There's another bill in the legislature that would mandate class sizes. It would give us like $1,800 per ADM, a huge amount, which I don't think they could ever afford. But then it would mandate our largest class size could be 23 kids. I think it mandates in the lower elementary grades 17 students. And if you have a class size larger than that, you are mandated to hire a para for that class. I don't think we have a class in this district within those ratios at the secondary level or at the elementary level. So we would be hiring literally hundreds of paras and folks, we don't have paras to hire.
Right.
And the other thing is, even if we had the ability to have smaller class sizes, we don't have space for reducing our class sizes that small. So that, I didn't even put that one in there because I can't imagine them doing that one. But who knows? So that one has some level of discussion at the legislature as well.
Yes.
Just make a point.
Yeah.
Thank you for spelling out all the finances for all this. It is alarming to kind of see how this is all falling out. And I was one of those people who was very excited at the beginning of this year that we would get a decent amount of money coming out of the legislature with a surplus. And so I was very hopeful. The thing that I keep coming back to is there's a potential getting 5%, maybe 4%.
that to me, while hopeful for this year, does not seem like it will continue in the future.
It's already not continuing. It's 4 and 2.
Oh, excellent. So as this is playing out, we have these, if
Over the
these
2
new
years.
laws pass, these are what we're going to be dealing with from here on out.
Perpetuity, yes.
In perpetuity. So as the years go by and we get more like a 3%, 2%, 1% increase, we're just going to see a larger and larger hole in our budget going forward. So I'm just, as I'm processing all of this, it is alarming and it's frustrating. And I certainly have reached out to our legislators on several occasions already, but I will continue to do so. And I appreciate the update.
Can we put this presentation on our website just to, I don't even know if, sometimes providing a little letter for the community to use as a starting point to make those emails. I know we have all the contacts on our website for legislators, but maybe there's something we can draft that would be an easy to send for community members. I do think this is a dire situation at this point, and it's imperative to reach out quickly for community members and for all of us to continue our efforts, which I know we've been doing.
One more question. When are we expecting to see these come before? Like, what is the timeline that we need to be focused on?
2024.
What, Annie? Sorry.
January 1st, 2024.
Yeah, that's when they would be implemented.
Would be implemented, correct. But when are these laws coming before the legislature? It's hard to keep up.
The finance bill came out today, but these aren't finance. I mean, a little bit in here, but most of these are just unfunded mandates that are policy. So I don't know what the timeline is. I can get you the answer on that. But when all their policy bills are going to be have to be wrapped up by.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know of any other neighboring superintendents that are doing anything, have similar concerns, or have?
I think there's concerns statewide.
Okay.
On this issue. It's just, what are we doing to rally the state to show people the light? Because again, folks, if we get into this situation, this will be short-term good for some people, but when we're talking long-term competitive raises for our professionals and support staff in this district, we won't be able to do anything because we will be beholden to these unfunded mandates. And you're right. I don't think, this is the greatest increase I think I have seen as a superintendent in potentially what we're going to be getting in additional revenue. And it's half of what the unfunded mandates are. And we know moving forward, we're not going to be seeing that kind of increase. But these mandates are going to be in place.
Yes, Director Petrie.
And I just appreciate you bringing this forward because I think what my fear is that the headline, what people are going to find out about is that we got this historic amount of funding from the legislature, and no one is going to be adding up all those unfunded mandates and realizing that we're actually almost, with this historic increase, we're almost at a deficit because of all the funding that needs to go into these unfunded mandates. So I really appreciate you bringing this forward, and I hope that message gets out there.
I do too. All right, on that note, just again to encourage community members to access this presentation, we'll try to maybe look at some template letters to make action easy for our community and just keep doing what we're doing, which is just reaching out via email, and thank you for the update. Okay, I do not have anything for my report tonight. We're going to move to the consent agenda. And we have action items here, A through H on the screen. Is there a motion to approve consent? Director Petrie, and second?
I'll second, sure.
With Director Hockert. Okay, all those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our first action item of this evening is our revised budget for 2022-2023. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Sherman, members of the board, Superintendent Funk, the community. So this evening before you is our 2022-23 budget revision. And this is probably one of the first and probably final budget revision that we'll do this year. This is 9 months into our fiscal year. And again, as a reminder, this is for our current year. And we, about a year ago, prepared this budget with a lot of assumptions. And this is, again, mainly a revision. There are a lot of things that have changed in the budget in this time. And so we're coming forward tonight to present those changes and present to the board for approval. So with that, what you will see here before you is the revenue changes. Again, highlighting that middle column with our different funds and that bottom line, just shy of $4 million, the changes that we're adding to that bottom line revenue. The main highlights here, again, the general fund is one of the larger funds, the change there, and I'll highlight some of those major changes in the different funds. And community service or community ed being the second largest that's changing. That bottom line, again, for the revised budget is $151.7 million. You'll see that overall change. And so just to highlight a few of the adjustments for revenue, our general fund overall is changing mainly the state aid and property tax. Those are for adjustments from our projections a year ago at this time. Also federal aid. So we had COVID funding that we are also budgeting for those allocations, and then also federal entitlements like our Title 1, 2, 3 programs. If those changed, we are putting that in since last March when we originally did those projections. Also in the food service fund, you will see federal aid has changed, and that's again due to participation. Again, summer programs, those were original assumptions in the budget. And then also sales, you can see that has increased. So you can see the changes there overall for food service. And then in community service fund, you can also see, there's a rebound, and that is great for community ed programming. The increased participation in the overall fund. And then also federal aid, we had the financial hardship grants, and that's for our early childhood program staff. And so you can see that's about 1.2 million overall change in the revenue there. And then our building construction fund and our debt service fund, those are just minor adjustments to our revenue overall for interest and other revenue. So those are just minor adjustments, but we like to get those in and make sure our funds balance. So on the other side, our expenditure changes. I'm highlighting that this looks a little different. The overall changes here are about 12.4 million in that middle column for expenditures, and that you will see the bottom line revised budget is 159.6 million. And again, highlighting that our general fund is the largest contributor to the changes. And I'll highlight on the next slide why that's different from our revenue. And the general fund also had some adjustments in not only salaries, but our debt service and our other post-employment benefits. And debt service was because we do have a lease levy that does sit in our general fund, and we make our certificates of participation payments there. But the other thing that we were utilizing was fund balance. And that is planned fund balance for our long-term facility maintenance projects that we had. And we also had an adjustment to our levies. So we are utilizing some fund balance there, about $5.8 million overall. So that is why your expenditure side looks higher than your revenue side, but we are balancing between the funds.
So one of the examples of that is, we have the 18 to 21 transitions project. That's coming, that was not approved by the board prior to this budget being adopted in June. You approved it a couple months later. That's why the revision is in place, so that's where that number is coming from.
Exactly. So you can see the overall changes there in our general fund. And then for food service fund, you can see again, there were adjustments with increased participation. You have that support staff, you have food recycling, food commodities, and equipment was a major purchase with this fund. You probably saw some board action throughout the past year on equipment and updates. So that was an investment, a planned, mindful investment throughout that fund. And then our community service fund, again, had salaries and benefits adjustments to support that increased participation, and then also purchase services. There were youth enrichment classes, printing, the school readiness subs. So again, more activity with that increased programming. And then overall, again, some adjustments to our building construction fund. We actually decreased the expenses in the building construction fund there. And then our debt service, again, right-sizing that bond interest, making sure we're adjusting to what we need to have in there. So again, that concludes the budget revisions. Again, this is a planned, our updated plan to you for our budget, and we'll continue to provide the board information on the budget to actuals. And the actuals, again, are what we're monitoring for analysis for our year-end, finalizing that.
Great. Yes.
So I just want to compliment Marie for the efforts she has made. You know, we had a finance director, interim finance director for 2 years, in John Tyne. He left right before I started. We had another interim finance director for a few months before Marie took over. And so Marie has really been digging through data. Why are we doing what we've done, as different people have kind of led through the finance area in the last few years. And so I could tell you that this is the first time since I've been here, and I've only been here since July, but we've got somebody who has a really good handle on what's going on with our budget. So I appreciate all your efforts into getting us to where we are today. And we're putting plans in place to stabilize the organization here moving forward.
I would echo those comments, Marie. I mean, this has been so nice for the board to have someone take a look at everything, why it's being done, and just, I know it's been a tremendous amount of work for you. So it's very appreciated, and it's definitely recognized by everyone at the table and beyond. So thank you very much. I want to open it up to questions, but first I'll make a motion to approve the revised budget 2022-2023. Can I get a second? Okay, Director Kelsenberg, and questions, comments for Marie or Superintendent Funk. Thank you very much. We're going to vote. So all those in favor of approving the revised budget as presented, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and we look forward to future updates, so thank you. Thank you. All right. Next on the list is Stonebridge Elementary renovations. Mr. Dummerhausen.
Good evening, Chair Sherman, members of the board. Tonight, there's two action items here kind of back to back. So the first one is our summer long-term facility maintenance project at Stonebridge Elementary School. We're going to update 8 classrooms, 4 on the east side of the building and 4 on the west side of the building, and then looking to replace the ceilings, lights, sinks, casework, chalkboard, flooring, et cetera, as well as updating the restrooms that are adjacent to each one of those areas to provide ADA accessibility to our restrooms that serve those 4 classrooms, both on the west side and the east side of the school. Lastly, in addition, we'll be providing domestic hot water to those rooms too that they currently don't have. So we budgeted about $1.6 million here in a bid day budget, and it came in for the 10 work scopes for that project at $1,248,747.69. So with that, I'd be looking for approval for this summer's Stonebridge LTFM project, and I'll be open for any questions or comments that you may have.
Great. Is there a motion on the floor?
Sure.
Yeah, Director Kelsenberg making a motion to approve?
Yep.
Great. And I will go ahead and second and open it up to questions for the board for Mark. My only comment is I'm excited for the school to get hot water into every classroom because when I went and visited there, I can't even imagine like coming in from a cold recess and washing your hands with cold water, freezing cold water. So that was something that was even surprised me that we didn't already have warm water, hot water coming into the classroom. So anyway, okay, no more questions for Mark. Happy to see the costs come in under budget. I always have to comment on that, so that's a really good thing. And with that, let's vote. So all those in favor of approving the Stonebridge Elementary renovations, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then we'll stick with you, Mark, for the LTFM improvement package.
Yep, so the last one here is the district-wide multi-site. So as you've seen over the last couple of months, we've had different LTFM projects come to the board, kind of the bigger ones at each one of the individual buildings. This is kind of the last final catch-all of the projects that aren't really big enough to have their own standalone projects and standalone bids. We put them together to try to get efficiencies with our bids with the different work scopes that are combined. So in your packet, they'll kind of see there are 7 buildings that have different things in terms of a couple classrooms that are going to be updated here and there, to providing ADA accessibility to our restrooms in some of our buildings, replace ceilings and light fixtures and hallways and those sorts of things. So this is just kind of a catch-all to all those projects that you can see in your packet. So again, we had a budget about $2.8 million here for the multi-site projects, and these 10 work scopes were $2,226,286. So with that,
Thank you so much.
I'll open it.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the LTFM improvement package. Can I get a second?
Second.
Director Petrie, and questions that may be out there? Great. Just a comment, Mark, and I know this is to you, Tony, and to everyone behind the scenes. There's so much work that goes into this that the community does not see, and so you staying on top of it is really why our buildings are just as great as they are, so.
It's my team. They do a great job.
Yeah,
It's the
they
people
do.
that
They
are working
do.
in the department. They are fantastic.
Yeah, so thank you. Okay, all those in favor of approving the LTFM package, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mark. And now we have our next action item, which is a resolution for non-renewing probationary teacher contracts. And for that, we're going to welcome Bob Graff, our new HR. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So we have the resolution. I think we have to post that. There we go. And I would like to remove one name, please, from the resolution that was added. That would be Pedro Reyes Garcia. Should not be listed on this form.
Okay. So when you approve the resolution tonight, we'll need a motion second and then a roll call vote. And then, as he noted, Pedro Reyes Garcia, his name is stricken from the resolution you're approving.
Great. Okay. Joan, let's do a roll call vote on this, right? Oh, there's a motion, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve, and I'll
do
let
a
you
second.
second.
Yep.
Great. Okay, and roll call, please, Joan.
Director Hockert?
Yes.
Director Kelsenberg?
Yes.
Director Petrie?
Yes.
Director
Yes.
Director Thelander?
Yes.
Chair Sherman?
Yes.
The resolution passes.
Great. So just for the audience sake, the resolution passed unanimously. So thank you. And then we're going to have another resolution here establishing combined polling places. We did do this already. And so I just want to, for the board and for the community who might be following this, when we passed that in December 28th, 2022, the list provided by Washington County was just off. And so we're taking that new updated spreadsheet from the county, and that's what we're correcting here. So they just inadvertently listed incorrect polling places. So is there a motion to pass this updated list? Director Porbeni, and is there a second? Okay, Director Kelsenberg. So we'll do a roll call vote for this one as well.
Director Hockert?
Yes.
Director Kelsenberg?
Yes.
Director Petrie?
Yes.
Director Porbeni?
Yes.
Director Thelander?
Yes.
Chair Sherman?
Yes.
The resolution passes.
Great. And that resolution also passed unanimously. Great. That is all for our action items this evening. We're going to move on to the report section of our meeting, and we have a GATE program evaluation.
Presentation.
Yeah. This is our ongoing, just for the community's sake, we're going through a lot of our different special programming within the district and just looking at the data related to them and opportunities and findings that we have. So I appreciate you guys coming back.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Sherman, Director, Superintendent Funk, and community members. As you see, we are here to do our program evaluation on gifted and talented programming. We'll talk about the background, the current realities, and the opportunities moving forward. So just like the other program reviews, we followed these key research questions, and I'm not going to read all of those, but we talked about what the original identified goals were. Were we successful with those goals, and what unintended outcomes might we have had? And then looking at the input from the stakeholders and what they feel about it, and are they satisfied? And then how is it functioning from the organization lens, and then cost and effect of the program.
As we begin the presentation, we'd like to make sure that we have a common understanding of what gifted and talented means. So this is a definition that comes to us from the National Association for Gifted Children. Gifted and talented, students, children, and youth who give evidence of high achievement capability in such areas as intellectual, creative, artistic, or leadership capacity, or in specific academic fields, and who need services or activities not ordinarily provided by the school in order to develop those capabilities.
What do gifted and talented programs look like across the state? There are some full-time gifted and talented schools focusing on servicing the needs of advanced learners. There are enrichment programs that have opportunities to explore topics at greater depth or rigor or beyond that regular curriculum, and they're provided both in the regular classroom or in gifted and talented small groups. There are some non-traditional educational options ranging from substituting curriculum within the school day to full-time homeschooling, and then online education because it provides that flexibility for gifted kids to move at their own pace. Currently, there are 20 self-contained or school within a school programs in Minnesota, and we are one of those currently. So this is Stillwater's vision for gifted services currently. We have gifted and talented clusters, and the philosophy of clustering is to encourage that differentiation at the classroom level with small groups of similar learners. And then GATE, the Gifted and Talented Education Program, the philosophy is to empower students to passionately pursue their creative endeavors through 21st century learning opportunities in an environment that individualizes to meet the needs of the whole child.
So as we look at the history of gifted services in Stillwater, I think we'll start in 2006. I'm sure it took place before then, but there were some programmatic changes or shifts that seem to have started around 2006. That was the gifted clusters, identifying students in 4th and 5th grade at all of our elementary schools, clustering or grouping those students into classrooms so that teachers could provide some uniform services to those students. And so that's been going on in a variety of different forms for the last 17 years or so, since 2006. Shortly after that, the GATE program began at Oak Park. We had GATE servicing students in grades 4 and 5. That's that self-contained program. And that started in 2008. The following year, those 5th graders became 6th graders, and we brought in a new batch of 4th graders. So then for the next 8 years or so, 9 years or so, we ran a GATE program, highly differentiated towards those students for students in grades 4 through 6. Then with the grade shifts and building shifts, the program moved from Oak Park to Stillwater Middle School in 2017. And so for another 6 years there, the program served primarily 4th and 5th grade. And then last year we began clustering again students in 6th through 8th grade at the middle schools. Students prior to those clusters were also able to take advantage of the honors and the accelerated courses as part of the normal programming of the school. Over on the right, we have the eligibility criteria. So each of these, both clusters and the GATE program, use data to determine students that eligible for the programming. So the GATE program is designed around the philosophy of very high ability and achievement. And so it's students who are in the top 4% nationally on the COGAT assessment, cognitive ability test, as well as at the 90, the top 4th percentile essentially for FastBridge math and reading. You can go on the website. There's a lot of different tiers of how those determinations are made, so this is a simplification of what you'll find online. And then with our clusters, we're looking for students who, again, score very high on the COGAT at the 89th percentile nationally, and also then perform very high on math or reading. So students could be clustered into a classroom for math or for reading supports.
I don't mean to interrupt, I just wanted to clarify. So we didn't start the clustering until 2021?
The middle school.
At
the middle school.
At the middle school.
Okay. Because, all right, and I don't remember, that didn't require board action? Because I don't remember that coming to the board for action. Okay.
That was before.
Right. Okay. I wasn't aware that it just started in 2021, so I'm sorry. I just was asking.
So in a short summary of some of our key findings within this work, we've identified that, and we'll show to you later in the presentation, that our achievement for our gifted and talented students surpassed district comparables. We'll look at demographic data for the gifted and talented programming, and we'll note that it does not reflect the district's overall student population. Certainly a lack of diversity in socioeconomic status and some race ethnic groups. We'll certainly identify that elementary clustering is not happening consistently across the district. We also will recognize that there is moderate support, often split across cluster respondents and G and GATE respondents, but support for the program is a little mixed. There's also, we'll recognize the current programming has been limited over the history in scope and in range, really focused at that 4th and 5th grade level with some attempts to grow and expand and prepare with a range of success there. And then also we'll see concerns raised, especially from parents and students around the social and emotional supports, especially in the transition period to GATE from 3rd grade classrooms, as well as to the high school from that middle school experience.
I'll highlight the of note.
Oh, yes. And so also note that we'll look at college credit coursework. We will look at some AP scores. We'll look at college and schools, dual enrollment, some of those kind of components that might be a little bit lower than we would expect. We also see some attrition of our gifted and talented students, especially at the high school level. So we can take a look at some of those components.
So this is our current reality, our program model. So we have the cluster experience in grades 4 through 5 at the elementaries. And this is where our GATE specialist works with the classroom teacher to help with the differentiation strategies to enrich the students' daily experiences. So we try to cluster the gifted and talented students together so that we can do that more readily. And again, this is the ideal that we want that to happen. The GATE experience, grades 4 through 5, this is a self-contained school within a school experience at Stillwater Middle. It's experiential and personalized learning that takes place throughout the day in all subjects. Our grades 6 through 8, our students are clustered in honor classes in math or language arts or both. And students are with their GATE peers in honor classes, but with their regular Pony Center cohort throughout the day. So they start to break away a bit from that original 4 or 5 self-contained classroom.
So where do our GATE students reside? So this is our currently enrolled students, and we thought instead of presenting numbers in some chart that we would utilize some of the tools at our disposal. So this is a heat map of our community and where students in the GATE program reside. You'll see a large red area down below south of Interstate 94, and then a nice smattering on both sides of Highway 36 there.
So our high school experience, these are the opportunities that our gifted students have at AP classes, subject acceleration, college in the school, Project Lead the Way, honors courses, University of Minnesota Talented Youth Math Program, world language courses, independent studies, or post-secondary enrollment options.
Now we'd like to shift and look at some of our enrollment and enrollment trends. So here we see GATE and elementary clusters. So this is a stacked bar where we will see on top is the cluster students and below are the GATE students. So at 4th grade, we've identified 47 students in clusters and 28 for the GATE program. At 5th grade, it's 52 to 30. And then when we get to 6th grade, 7th grade, those represent the numbers of GATE students who had been identified in previous years. The clustering, we don't track those students in that way in our data that we're looking at. As I mentioned, those GATE students and cluster students are able to take advantage of the full range of the accelerated and honors courses at the middle school, including honors English and the current LEAP program at 7th grade and 8th grade science, as well as grade acceleration in mathematics.
Can I ask a quick question? So with the clusters, the 47 and the 52, I'm assuming they're spread across the district in all of the elementary schools. So we're looking at a handful of kids in each grade, right? 4 or 5, or is it higher in some areas? I mean, I guess I don't know if you broke out the data that way.
So if we go back to that heat map, I believe that heat map is specific to the GATE 4-5 program. So that does not include the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students and where they reside. So that would give you a little idea of where the 4th and 5th grade students are coming from and which schools.
I guess I'm focused more the cluster specifically.
Does that include the clusters or that?
Yeah.
That does not include clusters. That is just
Okay.
the GATE, utilizing the, yeah.
Okay.
was going to say.
We'll get that to you.
Okay, just out of curiosity.
While you're here, is this a snapshot right now of our current year? So that number, the 31, will become 31 seventh graders next year if they all stay?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
This is enrollment in our AP courses at the high school in math and language arts, and we chose those subject areas because that's where the students are accelerated in the GATE program primarily. And so you can see our GATE students take an average of 1.4 AP classes in math and language arts. Our cluster students take 1.1, and then our district is 0.16. So it is higher. If you look at the breakdown, you can see that our math courses, there's a higher number of our GATE students taking the math AP classes, 24 out of 40 versus 8 taking the language and composition and literature and composition. And then the number of cluster students, and then all other students. So you can see this data was interesting. I think we were all surprised that it was as low overall with GATE, cluster, and all of our students as it is, but that is the information.
We just added some data this afternoon, so this might not be in the presentation that you got sent out, so.
Yeah. It's just important to note that those AP courses that are listed are primarily taken by juniors and seniors. So our 9th grade and 10th grade, certainly general population wouldn't be involved in those. Some GATE students who are double and triple accelerated in math specifically you may find some 10th graders in that AP Calc perhaps.
And there might be some duplication, like you might have a student, so when we say 24 out of 40, they could be taking, out of that 24, they could be taking AP Computer Science and Calc, so they might be counted differently there.
We also wanted to look at the number of students or percent of students participating in dual enrollment options. So this would include post-secondary enrollment options where a student is taking courses full-time on a college campus, or we also have additional programs and courses through the college and the schools programs. And so we see that about, over 20% of our GATE students participate in post-secondary enrollment options, and over 40%, 45% in the college and the schools program.
Here's enrollment by our special populations. And so we looked at our free and reduced lunch numbers, special education, and our English language learners. So you can see that it does not indicate our population in GATE and clusters is different than the district average. So 1% of our GATE students qualify for free and reduced lunch. The one area that you do see it matching a little bit more accurately is the GATE. 11% also qualify for special education, and we have seen that rise nationally. It's called twice exceptionality. So students have giftedness and also have some special education needs. So that matches more of the district average, and then clearly our English language learner population is not represented currently at all. So enrollment by race, ethnicity, and gender, some things to point out or highlight. In our Asian subgroup, there's 16% that are in GATE and 5% in clusters, which is higher than the district average. But you can see in our Black students, it's lower, and our Hispanic and Latino students, it's lower. The white population is similar in the GATE program as to the district average, a little bit higher. And then we just wanted to show the percentage. We don't have the district percentage, but the percentage of males and females in both clusters and GATE. And it's a little bit higher with males especially in the GATE program.
Shifting our focus a little bit to look at achievement data, specifically in math and reading. So kind of as we would expect, as I mentioned, in order to get into the program, there needs to be very high performance and achievement tests. And so unexpectedly, we see near 100% of our GATE students meeting or certainly exceeding proficiency on the MCA reading exam. So here on this graph on the left, you see grade by grade. This is data combining all the years from 2017 through 2023. And so you'll see a large number of kids within each of those grade bands. There is a small little sliver, you can barely see it at the bottom, of students who are partially meets, and there could be any number of reasons for that, why they might be proficient on one year and not the next. Also on the right then, we see the trends, and both of these, all of this data can be found on the MD report card on the MD website. So this is a trend graph that's similar to that I've shared in previous presentations. That top line is our GATE 4-5 cohort trend over time. Again, very high, close to that 100%, and maintaining that. I think one of the things we've highlighted in presentations past is that dip that we've seen in COVID. And you see that there with the district average, you see it with the state average. We don't see that dip with our gifted students. We see the same kind of thing with our math data. A little dip in our 5th grade proficiency levels. We could certainly explore that a little bit more. I'm not sure if that's a recent data point or older data. Same kind of trends that we see then across the state and district as well. So that very high performance, a little tiny slippage, but certainly not representative of the rest of the state. The last data that we're looking at here is the ACT. We did compile this. I think this is another new slide that may not have been in your previous packet, but we wanted to make sure that we could represent this as well. So we see the ACT results of our current senior class. So this is just limited to this class. And we see their composite score for all gifted students. So this isn't just GATE. These are anyone who's identified as gifted. So that could be cluster or GATE. So that composite score on the ACT is at 26.7 is very strong, bringing the average up to that 21.4. This amounts to about 20% of our test takers. Similarly, in math and reading, we see scores that far exceed the rest of the district by 6 points or so. So that is a quick look. That is, again, a snapshot of one point in time of one class and their best scores. So it's not even one test period. It's students are able to take this multiple times. And so this represents their best, their super score, so to speak.
Now we're going to look at some of the feedback from our stakeholders. So this first slide talks about what our gifted and talented families were identified as their most important outcomes of gifted services. And I do want to point out before I go into that we had 117 survey respondents, and those included our GATE students, our cluster, our GATE parents, our cluster parents, early entrance to K parents, grade acceleration, and any of our AP, college in the school, and PSEO for high school parents. So these are in order what they feel are the most important outcomes: meaningful and challenging learning activities or experiences, individualized learning pathways, developing relationships with peers, high levels of academic achievement in all subject areas, thinking and organizational skills, social emotional support, and self-understanding. And our overall satisfaction is a 3.8. And again, that's all of those respondents together. and why gifted and talented families choose gifted programming for their child. This is a Wordle, so you can see the biggest words are the ones that are most important. Challenge is the one that jumps out, and you see teachers in program, unique needs, then it kind of stays about the same, but it's just, the experience, the curriculum, those kinds of things. So challenge is the biggest piece.
We heard additional feedback from our gifted and talented families, asking what do they like the best and what are some of the concerns they have. So I think this data is a summary of what we'll see on the next slides as well, but certainly there's an appreciation for the individualization and the opportunity for acceleration, the challenging academics, appreciation for the teachers, and for the social and emotional supports that are offered. Some concerns that we'll hear. There's a concern about the location, both from a desire to have a north and south location, as well as concerns with 4th and 5th grade students being in a middle school setting. There's some concerns around what the rest after 5th grade, what does the middle school and high school options for continuing some of the philosophy of instruction look like. Access to services, especially around that clustering model. Interestingly, right, we see social emotional on the one side, we also see it on the other. There are significant needs that our gifted students have in this area. But then also recognizing the academic needs to continue deepening and growing and increasing rigor and access to those higher level courses. Specifically from our cluster families, you see the average rating there of a 3.5, and 50% of families being likely or very likely to recommend clusters to a family member. That speaks to the inconsistent application of clustering across our elementary schools. Lack of support as well for middle school and high school students as they leave the program and enter into the high school. We'll see some feedback on that. Concern with the instructional model that's really focused and beneficial for self-motivated students, but what about those who need that extra support?
That represented 38 of the cluster families.
Thank you. And then feedback specifically from our GATE families, a higher overall average rating of 4.0. And 74% of those families being likely or very likely to recommend GATE to a family member. Concerns presented, desire for more variety in instruction. Again, also concerns with the GATE program and location. Some comments about students having to be bused or long car rides from their locations to the school, and as well with the students leaving their home schools and missing out on those elementary experiences that their peers might be having back in that home elementary school. Some of the field trips, assemblies, some of that peer relationships as students leave their home school to go to the high school, there's a disruption there, which increases some of the need for social emotional support. For some, students and graduates represents an isolation within that peer group. And then when they get into situations outside of their group, feeling further isolated. Students having a difficult time transitioning to high school as well. And again, that last bullet point, lack of that middle school and high school programming, especially around the areas of social emotional support.
That was 92 respondents. This one, there's a couple changes here, so I'll try to explain this as best as possible. So this is talking about our students in grades 9 through 12, and the 9th and 10th graders were the first 4th and 5th grade GATE students at Stillwater Middle, okay? And the 11th and 12th graders were the last 5th and 6th grade students at Oak Park, just for some context. In grade 9, there were 6 students that we lost when they entered into that out of 25 total students. So we don't know where these students go. Some of them may be out-of-district students that participated in the program and then go back to their current district. Some move, so we don't have that breakdown exactly of where they all go. The next group, it was a total of 19 overall, and we lost 3 with the 16% loss. The next group, juniors, and I apologize that the information isn't accurate on the slide, but there were a total of 33 students. We had to, because of our system change from Skyward to PowerSchool, we had to find these rosters by hand and then look them up to see if they're identified as GATES, so we missed a roster. So there were 33 total students, and we've lost 10 with a percentage of 30%.
For 11th grade?
For 11th
For
grade.
11th grade, yes. So that's just a little bit different there.
And since I looked at that data just recently, I can say 6 of those 10 either moved or were not part of this district to begin with. So they may have gone back to a home school.
And just a point of clarification, we're not talking about PSEO here. I mean, in
Not
terms of,
PSEO.
this is
No.
like students just
They're off the
leaving,
books.
they're leaving our district entirely. Okay.
And then the last one is out of the total of 19, we lost 2 for 10.5%. So the average change is a little bit, we didn't do the math on that.
recalculate that.
So that 18% is a little bit higher overall.
Can we, just speaking to the open enrollment piece, do we know in that 4th and 5th grade what the open enrollees versus the in-district students are? Did you look at that? I guess I didn't even think of asking that. So if you don't know it, maybe we could just follow up with that.
Yeah, I don't have that here, but we can.
Okay. I'm just curious how many kids are coming into the program from outside of the district.
Typically, it's I know last year there were a handful as we had space available.
Okay.
I'm not going to throw out a number out.
You're right,
but
yeah, no, and I apologize. I didn't even think about the open enrollment question.
And I think, it's different each given year. But we will look to find that out. And the one thing I did want to point out, we do have a couple students that have entered into, we have some students that move into the ALC too, so that can count as part of that attrition change, but it is different programming, so.
We also reach out to our recent graduates to get their perspectives on the program. Again, high rating similar to parents, 4.1, with 75% likely or very likely to recommend the program. They appreciated the opportunity for that acceleration and ability to take challenging curriculum, college level courses. They also had concerns with the social emotional impact, especially being isolated from their peers.
And we did hear from 16, so. So then we talked to principals and gathered some feedback on the current programming, and this was elementary and secondary. At the elementary level, it is difficult to truly differentiate instruction for the clusters just due to all the other needs that are within a classroom. There's not a great deal of opportunity that are different for those clustered students. In the GATE program, we do have more varied needs with that twice exceptional student. So they come with that high academic, needing those high academic pieces, but they might need more support in social emotional. And so providing those pieces. And again, that goes with that social emotional learning needs of all of our gifted students. It can be sometimes challenging to schedule with the clusters at the middle school level, and then provide programming and supports for gifted and talented students at Oakland Middle School. So that was the feedback from principals.
So if we take a look at the costs associated with the program, and these costs are not necessarily representative of costs above and beyond what normally would be expended. They are the costs of the program itself. So we have 4 FTE at Stillwater Middle School. So 2 of those are the 4th and 5th grade teachers. We also utilize staff at the middle school to provide this specialist time. So based on the middle school schedule, each teacher who provides that specialist support is essentially a 0.2. So there's 1.2 FTE dedicated for specialist time. And then for the students who are clustered at grades 6, 7, and 8, there's an additional 0.8 FTE to round up to the 4.0 FTE. In addition to that, we do have a gifted and talented lead who not only supports the testing that happens across the district, communicates with parents on a regular basis regarding admission and a point of contact, but also provides the professional development to the teachers in the program, as well as providing cluster support and piloting some initiatives at some of our elementary schools as we're looking to grow some of the clustering. We do have some curricular PD and sub costs. That is not just the GATE program, that is our district-wide gifted and talented services. So when we pull subs or provide PD or materials for different programming, we'd be looking at around $30,000 a year. And then there's the transportation costs, which we've talked about last summer around the GATE program specifically and what that cost would be.
Would the bulk of the curriculum PD and subs come from that 4 or 5? Or if there's a classroom in the 6, 7, 8, that's a sub and that comes from that?
I'd have to, no, it doesn't, I'd have to dig deeper into those exact expenditures, but I would say a bulk of it, yes, does go to support the GATE program specifically at Stillwater Middle, but we do, we are working to increase the cluster opportunities and looking at different ways of doing that.
It also includes our COGAT testing, that amount for all of our students.
So, but any cluster expenses come from here?
Correct.
Not
correct.
from the school's budget?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And then lastly, just to identify, there is additional specific revenue generated from Minnesota funding. It is $3 per student. 13. What did I say, 3? We get a little more than that.
It's a little higher.
Not much.
Use more. Yeah, so $13 or generating about $115,000 per year to offset those costs.
Ooh, before you move on, with that funding for the $13, are there any kind of state expectations, statutory expectations for meeting the needs of GATE students tied to that money? Or is it just something that every district kind of gets?
Formula.
Okay, thank you.
It's part of it. It's a line item in the formula statewide.
So everybody gets it?
Yep.
Got it, thank you.
So what are some opportunities? Well, we worked on this. We did do some comprehensive literature review of what best practices are. And some of those research areas were assessment and identification, how to increase and diversify our populations of students, what program designs are best, curriculums and instructional needs of our students, teacher capacity, looking at standards and data, brain research, neurology, and then that twice exceptionality. So, and again, we looked at lots of different research, and it lists all the different pieces down there, but key findings were assessment considerations and not just looking at COGAT as an assessment tool. What our primary supports are for our gifted and talented students and being strategic with those supports. Individualization, there was a lot of information about the importance of acceleration, and then developing partnerships to help us maximize potential with, getting hands-on experiences for our students and looking at that as a way to just enhance the program. So that was the literature piece. And within that model, in looking at that research, we really looked at shifting to a talent development framework by looking at the talents and skills of all of our learners at an early age through exploration and exposure, and not just waiting till 3rd and 4th grade to identify our students based off the COGAP. But not all of our learners come to us with equal opportunities or having had equal backgrounds, and so really trying to, at a young age, develop those talents and skills and individualize and provide a pathway for them. By doing that, we're really hoping to eliminate the access and opportunity gaps that we might have currently in our programs and create those personalized pathways with student voice and choice at an early age. And so you'll hear us talking about pushing our pathways option all the way down at that early elementary level, and then maximize learning throughout a student's education. So starting in kindergarten, moving all the way up through 12th grade by providing that voice, choice, and individualization, and putting them on the path so that they can find their maximum success.
So through this process, listening to stakeholder feedback, looking at the data, examining the research, there's a number of different program enhancements, opportunities for improvements, and other changes that could come out from this work. And that first bullet point really kind of keys into one of the things that we said on the last slide, and that is growing our talent. Really taking a chance to cultivate those K-3 learners, looking at their creativity and critical thinking, and building and growing that and preparing them for the current program that we have. Also recognizing, we have some significant focus that we need to place at the high school level, right? And so one of the ideas would be to really cluster our 9th grade students into a Pony Center to provide that counseling support and that social emotional support, the guidance, the academic resource there. And so kind of on both ends, our earliest learners as well as our high school students.
And looking at the pathways expansion and those other avenues of giftedness, of creativity, critical thinking, skills, grit, leadership, the arts, and pushing that, again, K through 12, looking at different ways that we can identify our students and have alternative assessments so that we're not just relying on the COGAT or providing a pathway in those other areas of giftedness.
Some of these, might present cost savings. Others may need some additional funding. Some of them are cost neutral. One of those that might be more cost neutral would be this multi-tier system of support, really utilizing our current structures to have conversations. And I would include BAR into this mix as well as we talk about student strengths and what they're interested in, what their passions are, and how to build those into a personalized learning framework. I think there's some ways that we could some opportunity to really identify that as part of our system. That was Mel.
Yeah. Looking at personalizing the learning throughout, and as we look at that, sometimes by 3rd grade, students can shut down already if they're bored. And so that's why it's super important to start identifying these things and providing those personalized learning options early on, and then continuing it all the way through their academic career. And being creative with some hybrid programming if we need to accelerate in a different area where we might not have that curriculum or that class, that we could provide some online support where students can work at their own individual pace. And that would help provide that student voice and choice. We heard this in a lot of our feedback that it's really important with that social emotional learning, that we give students the support that they need early on and all the way through. Our gifted students are, unique. Well, all of our students, that's just an important thing to do across the board, but individualizing that SEL at different times to help meet the needs, and then looking at their, as well as their executive functioning skills and helping them to develop those to the maximum. And then with that, as I talked earlier about expanding those community partnerships, just like we do with our Pathways program at the high school, doing that early on and building that. And then we would like to expand our summer programming opportunities, similar to when we presented with achievement and integration with some of the unique opportunities in the summer program, that to do something similar for our gifted students that provide those hands-on enrichment opportunities.
And then given an uncertain financial and space constraints, unknowing what the future might hold, or board parameters and directives for programming, there might be additional changes that would be made. One of those could be moving the GATE 4-5 program to an elementary school, away from Stillwater Middle School, and then providing the clustering at 6 and 8 at both middle schools. Another directive might be to transition GATE 4-5 students to the elementary schools, again, not having the program at the Stillwater Middle School. These both present pretty significant programmatic and personnel changes and shifts, and so there would certainly be a lot of conversation and planning that would need to happen to make those happen.
And our goal throughout all of this is to create opportunities for all, where curiosity truly thrives in all of our students. And that's the bottom line, is in taking every student where they're at and maximizing their full potential, and no matter what their level of giftedness is and the gifted paths that they might have. And so that's the goal.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll open it up for questions or comments from the board. Director Petrie?
Thank you for that. I appreciate all the work and the data that went into that. It really helps us kind of understand the program. I want to go back to something that was said at the very beginning of this presentation, and that was talking about the fact that there's about 20 programs in the state that are similar to this, you know, where it's a school within a school or maybe an entire school. I was really surprised that that number is so low, and I am just sort of curious about what the trend is. What does that tell us about the trend in terms of these programs? Has that number been higher and it's now lower, or was it lower and now it's higher? I mean, what can you tell us about the trend in these kinds of enclosed programs, if you will?
I'm not sure if we know what the trend is or if that has changed significantly. I think it's not unusual to see more of that enrichment program model because, well, when you look at the funding source, that it's $13 per student, there's not usually a lot of additional money.
You mean the clustering sort of approach, or?
Kind of. Sometimes you'll see pull-out models where, especially at the elementary and even at the middle school, where students are provided an enrichment opportunity on maybe it's a book and a novel or a project fair or things like that. So I think you see typical kind of push in, you know, they can explore those topics. That's the second one, besides that gifted and talented full-time school, is just that they're looking at different topics in greater depth or rigor. I think that is more common. And I think, so I think we can definitely look at what past has been as far as if that number of self-contained schools has changed dramatically in the past few years. I think with budget constraints, I'm sure that is a factor.
The programs I'm familiar with have been around for quite a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't paid attention to programs closing. I would, if I were to speculate. Can I speculate? Is that okay? You know, when I think about the transition to, there was a big magnet school approach about 2 decades ago to create different kinds of opportunities across districts. That may have had an impact. The charter school movement certainly has had an impact, I know, in our larger urban settings in terms of the programs that are offered and how those programs have had to shift to account for the different charter options that emerged.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hockert? Yeah, and actually, it kind of tags off of Dr. Peachy's comment. So thinking about these 20, I'm not sure if you know where the 20 are. I'm curious if our neighbors, if our neighbors have any kind of gate programming. I know of at least 2 of them. I believe Matamidi does not and South Wash does, but that's all I know. So I'm curious if our program is a draw for enrollment from our neighboring districts, and if it is, do we have room? Do we have wait lists for this program, particularly the 4-5 pullout program? Are we able to accommodate our students within that program to have and still have space for an enrollment draw, or are we maxing out the program within ourselves? Sorry, that was a lot rolled into that.
Yeah, so without having the data directly in front of me, I can say that we do utilize open enroll students to round out sections. We do cap, I believe, our sections at 32. So again, it's a little high on 4th grade, but when we get into middle school, that becomes a bit more appropriate. And so, we will utilize open enrollment options to round out our section size.
Let me go here first, and then I'll go to you. Go ahead, Dr. Kelsenberg.
Earlier you said clustering is inconsistent at the schools. Is there a reason for that, or is that just the students that qualify in an individual school?
I think because, there's a lot of needs in each individual classroom, when you're looking at all the different needs of the students. And sometimes, when you have students that are struggling to understand a subject matter, math or reading, and then students that get it, you're trying to fill in those gaps. And so I think it sometimes is just trying to make sure that having that dedicated time for those students that need to be pushed and moved at a different rate is difficult within managing all the other students within your classroom and their needs as well. So I think it's not a purposeful, thing. The teachers do a great job of differentiating to try to meet the needs of all students, but again, there are lots of needs across the board, and they're getting it, and trying to find activities. And we're also trying to work with our teaching staff to provide training for them to know what to provide those students and what would be beneficial for them, because we all know the research. It's not give them more work. They don't need more work to keep them busy because they're done. It's how to really deepen that learning for them and keep them engaged.
All right, thanks.
Director Porbini.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Definitely, we have a great program here. I have one question, though. I've been hearing, one of the things that you've been talking about is the enrollment. So how is the selection made into the program?
So it begins with all of our 3rd grade students being tested using the COGAT assessment. So every single student participates in that. And so then we take a look at that when that data comes in, and we compare it against the FastBridge reading and math data. And so we identify all the students that meet the criteria that's set forth. And so again, in order to be in GATE, it's a high bar both on the COGAT and on both reading and math. And so from there, then we send out invitations to the families to consider. And it is a consideration that families have to make. For some, it does disrupt friendship patterns and social. And ultimately, families decide this is going to be the best choice for my student to meet their academic needs. And so it is very much a data-driven decision based on those those data points. And so often we'll get phone calls from parents saying, my student is, so close, it's just 1% or 2% away. But the way that the program is designed for that individualized instruction, for the self-paced instruction, for the project-based, for the the acceleration that takes place within it, we do have to have those cut points that we're looking at.
So do you take all the students that you send letters to? Do you invite?
I'd have to check the data. But I don't believe we've had a wait list. We don't send out an invitation saying, we'll consider you. If we send an invitation out, it is because there is a spot for that student to participate in the program.
So, but how does it work though? Because I understand that there's a draw. You have to, so is that not what it is? There's a draw, right? You just don't send a letter, the parent says, yep, I'm going to participate. Because I'm looking at the...
Are you saying, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are you asking if there's a lottery?
There's a lottery.
There's
isn't
not
there?
a lottery. No. No.
There was a lottery though, right?
For the Amigos Unidos program, we do a lottery. For this program,
There's never been a lottery for the GATE program?
I don't know about ever, but certainly in the last 2 years, we have not had a lottery. We've gone through the assessments and have identified students based on those tools and filled the classes based on that.
That's all I recall, too. I don't recall there being a lottery for, I could be wrong, but I don't recall that either.
Because
hold on sorry, I just wanted, Superintendent Funk wanted to say something here.
So, from a organizational level, when you show a demographic slide that students in the GATE program are not demographically matched to our school district, and you're sharing with the board that, well, we use these two tests to determine whether a student is in the GATE program. How are we going to fix that? How are we going to identify talent? Because I can tell you, I mean, and Dawn, you said it very well. Okay, one of the things we're looking for is grit in kids. Mm-hmm. I think that just because you score well on a test doesn't mean you're not gifted in some area. So I'm just curious on thoughts as we're looking at this talent development piece moving forward. Are there any plans to look at different teacher recommendations for the program rather than just looking at, okay, you didn't make the cut score, sorry? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that is one of the opportunities that we're exploring. And so part of it is utilizing some earlier screenings as well as utilizing other screening tools. So, all of the COGAT, attempts to be unbiased in its administration and its construction, but we know bias can be inherent in whatever tools that we're using. And so identifying other tools that, and I won't list them, but there's other tools that don't rely as heavily on even verbal. So on the COGAT, there's multiple components, multiple batteries. So there is a nonverbal component of the assessment. There is a quantitative component. There is a verbal component. But we can also utilize assessments that are not linguistically based to address some of our EL learners. Or we can look at other forms of giftedness, looking at creativity. And so maybe some teacher recommendations falls into that, or other types of assessments. So that's something that we haven't built it into our system. Our identification is based on the program that we currently offer. And so as we look to change the program and increase the access and redefine how we provide gifted services, that would be part of the considerations. How do we identify them, students, differently?
And looking at that earlier, it will help us do that. And then our hope was to perhaps pilot different assessment tools to get a better handle on that, to know what would work well and what would give us a much different look at things, so that we can get an accurate picture and then kind of develop new criteria.
I think the other thing I would mention is it's also growing those learners, hence the K3 emphasis on that opportunity, right? So one of the metaphors I like to mention is like mushroom hunting, right? So a lot of our program is based on we're going to go out into the woods and find the mushrooms and then take them home, as opposed to going into the field and cultivating the field and watering and providing nutrients and whatever else that would require. But really utilizing that method of talent development to prepare students for whatever the program is that we run later on. So I think that's, for me, part of that identification is also how do we grow our learners and prepare them for that experience.
Oh, I wanted you to finish, yeah, sorry. I didn't.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. And just to, one of the areas that I saw here was the students who are in the GATE program at Stillwater Middle and are going to the middle school. So some of them are actually at Oakland. And so there's no continuation there. But those that are still at Stillwater Middle School, there's a continuation. So how do you address that? Because the students, I mean, we have all of these students who are in the same program, but because they had to go to their middle school, all of a sudden they lose those opportunities to continue with the GATE program.
Yep. So at Oakland Middle School, we also have opportunities for math acceleration. So we run the same kind of screening process there so that students are able to accelerate and participate in the next level or two for math instruction. There is also the honors English class that's offered in both schools. So there are additional opportunities at Oakland, not just in a GATE program.
So it's the acceleration program at Oakland.
There is acceleration opportunities in mathematics, and as we've talked about with that LEAP program in science, that is a program offered at both middle schools under the old standards.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Petrie.
I actually wanted to follow up on this whole line of questioning, and thank you, Dr. Funk, for that question, because I was kind of driving at that myself. I mean, it seems as though as we identify students and invite them into the program, there could be students whose parents, for whatever familial reason, don't want their child to be bused, to the junior high or to the middle school. And so, and I see, like for instance, it seems like it's almost a 3-2 breakdown in terms of boys versus girls in the program, which isn't probably consistent with our statistics. But so those students whose families don't want to send them to the program, are we serving those students? And I mean, I just hope that as we reconsider how we are approaching helping our gifted and talented students, that we recognize that that we have some gifted and talented students out there who just aren't being served because they don't want to fit into our little box, if you will.
And we saw that definitely is an opportunity for growth and trying to, again, with that talent development early on, that there would be some recognition of those talents and that they would develop that voice and choice as they pick the path that works best for them. That is that whole idea of that pathway through. But we definitely have opportunities there to continue growing and differentiating.
And those students would participate in the cluster program that would happen at the elementaries. But there is no replacement for the level of services that happen at Gate 4-5. That can't be replicated on a one-off situation, building by building. We need to, by having the students all congregate in one place, we're able to maximize the resources and meet those learning needs that way.
Oh, go ahead, Director Thielander.
Yeah, I just want to echo, thank you both for your time and efforts, and these are super helpful to get the due diligence and review of all these special programming. So thank you for the transparency and the opportunities to bring forth for the board to discuss. So thank you. A couple of questions. What's the MCA participation for gifted and talented?
a good question. I'd have to look. I don't have
I
that.
imagine it's pretty, mostly elementary, it's way up there. Like-
Elementary is high, yeah.
Okay.
When we get to secondary, it drops
It
off
drops.
across the board.
And obviously, those are the students we want participating, if possible, but that's obviously a family decision. There seems to just to be a little bit of a disconnect between maybe expectations and maybe just perceptions, especially I think around the clustering. What maybe families are coming into the programming versus what the realities that are happening. Just by like the feedback from the principals, this saying it's difficult to truly differentiate instruction. Not a great deal of opportunities that are different for clustered students, and seems like there's that disconnect that we're seeing in the ratings. Being only 50% likely to recommend and a 3.5% rating overall, which is interesting and maybe concerning to say that. Just figure out what that is. Also, I think the attrition. You're looking at the resources that go into a program like this, and to have such large, 25% in certain grade levels. I mean, that's significant. I'm just interested, how does that compare to the rest of the school district? I mean, that obviously must be significantly higher, I would imagine. I guess, any thoughts or also, is there any feedback that we're getting from these families that are leaving, which obviously they don't have to provide, but it'll be really helpful to have some type of exit surveys to understand, again, where is that disconnect? So, I don't know, any thoughts?
I don't know what what the comparable is in terms of the rest of the district. We can certainly look that up. I think one of the realities of bringing students in from an open enrollment into a 4-5 in middle school, again, speculating, probably shouldn't do that, but I think there could certainly be a certain amount of families then going back to their home school for their high school experience. That might be part of it. Each school, every high school offers something a little bit different, and so it's identifying at each stage of your student's academic path what's going to be the best fit for them.
I think a generalization, and so I'm not just speaking to Stillwater when I say this, is that when our gifted students become bored, they shut down. And so we don't see, and that can play out in a lot of different ways. We see, it looks like there's lack of motivation, it presents itself in many of the same ways as a struggling learner or someone that just doesn't care, apathetic. And I think it's really important that we continue to keep those students engaged all the way through. And sometimes as they move through the systems, there's certain classes you have to take. I mean, and we just have to make sure that there's opportunities for them to be challenged and enriched all the way through so that they're reaching that maximum potential in their academic career. And that, I just can't state that enough because clearly, we see that the clustering, which is new with the 6th through 8th grade, that, so we don't have that data of those kids coming all the way through, but we see other opportunities at the high school, that to continue to enrich their educational experience.
Thank you. And do you think this is, sorry,
No, go ahead.
Do you think this is also, you look at, leading into high school and kind of to your point, trying to find ways to enrich them and engage them, to me, does this lead to the fact that we're not having the flexibility based on the current scheduling, issues, and they're not able to take the electives that are of interest to them? I mean, is this like a root cause of something bigger that should be consideration from the board, that there's a cause and effect around that affects a lot of programs?
And I think you're going to hear a lot of different pieces presented to you to make those, decisions. I think this fits really well with our Pathways program and how it can be expanded by developing those partnerships and giving students opportunities to go out and have personalized learning, hands-on, experiential types of activities. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there that we can look at to help with it.
Just to respond to that, and I think you alluded to it in one of your key findings. I think we do a tremendous, awesome, great job at the 4-5 GATE program within the district. I really do. I think those kids go into that program and they learn and they are pushed and they do great things. It wasn't until last year that, okay, we created a cluster type system purposefully at Stillwater Middle. And we have had accelerated classes or advanced classes at Oakland, but your kids are now leaving, some are now leaving Stillwater Middle to go to Oakland back to their home school area. So the concern I have is awesome work at 4-5. The teachers do great things with those kids at the GATE program. The cluster program needs a lot of work. It sounds like it's inconsistent across the district. And then longitudinally, okay, we are now, I think what you guys have done here has done a great service to the district in identifying the fact that, all right, we've got this great program 4-5. We're starting to do more 6-8, but we really don't have a 4-12 program. And I think your attrition is the result of that. So it's, this is what data that we have, that we've received, that we can now take and try and figure out, okay, how do we make this better?
I think from my standpoint, it's, we have such great programs. So it's like, it's interesting for me as a board member to learn about these programs that I don't know much about, and we honestly should know more about. So I appreciate the opportunity and that, Dr. Funk, that you've come in here and really pushed for the board to have this information, because it's invaluable for decision making. I'm kind of taken aback. I think I have lots of questions, and I love these because it makes me think, and I'll probably just kind of go on for a few days thinking about it at least. But kind of mission creep comes into my mind with a lot of these programs, and it's like we went and we did this cluster program, and I don't recall that coming to the board. And I think that might be okay because maybe it's considered management because it was done within a budget, but I see the costs, and I kind of desperately want to get the entire district coalesced around a singular mission for all of our students. It just feels like we have a lot of boutique kind of programming that is kind of on an island fighting for resources and doing really amazing, great work. But where does it fit within our bigger mission of public education? So I guess I was just struck by that. And some of the costs, I mean, it's just the need to standardize any special programs we have. Like we come today and we've talked about this before, but GATE has transportation. Amigos Unidos came in a month ago and did not. I don't understand necessarily why, and should those kind of offerings on what we do be consistent? Should we have, and if it's not able to be sustained, then there's probably a problem with the program if it's not sustainable. The other thing I just kept thinking is the $241,000 in busing is a really hard pill to swallow, because I think that's a lot of money that we're taking out of a classroom, and how could we be spending that to maybe have comparable programming or beefed up programming that would keep our students in the elementary schools where maybe their social emotional needs might be better met? I mean, I'm just throwing out ideas here, but it seems anytime that a board is saying $241,000 on transportation, that's just a pause for me. I don't know, it feels like there could be better use for those dollars. And then, I think everyone's brought up some good things, but the other thing that I thought, which is inconsistent, is the fact that we have a program lead at GATE. And that is one thing I noticed between the last program evaluation and this one, is that that's something that Amigos Unidos wants and is asking for. And so it's that standard of what does every program in our district need to thrive and succeed. And so I guess I'm noticing as we have these different programs come in, what's different between one? What's changed on another, and is there a why behind it? And I don't know that there is, other than, I don't know, advocacy by program leads, I don't know. And then we were just in a bar conversation, and, I mean, we've heard this at the board table, they want to lead for elementary, and we don't give them that. So it hurts me to see that we're not being consistent in the support that we're offering our programs. I think for me, it goes back down to when we start revisiting our strategic plan, having this universal mission that we can say, this is what we're doing for our students, this is what we're doing for kids, and this is, maybe what we're not doing, because it's not helping.
Thank you, and thanks for those comments as well. I mean, truthfully, the GATE program is a great program, but just exactly like Chair Sherman just said, the inconsistencies, I'm still concerned about the students that leave Stillwater Middle, go to Oakland, and just continue with an accelerated program. I mean, a lot of kids at Oakland that didn't go to the GATE program have the accelerated program. So, I mean, it doesn't really, tell me anything, because there's still that divide. It's really, the support is really not necessarily for all with respect to continuation. My other question is, for the social emotional support, it's a big thing amongst our GATE students, right? And there's a lot of focus on that. Is there the same attention given to the kids who are not in the GATE program and have the same social emotional support? Because, I mean, we spend a lot of time, a lot of money, we talk about social emotional support. These kids are bloody smart, but, because of their social emotional needs, they can't pay attention, So we give those kinds of, what I say, excuses and support to those kids. But are we doing the same to the other kids who are not in the GATE program and have the same social emotional needs and not considered to be troublesome, and for some of them leading to suspension or all sorts of things? So the GATE kids are getting all the needs, we're giving all these excuses for them, we're doing all of these things, we're paying attention to that. What about the other kids? Are we doing the same? So that's one of the questions that I have. I mean, we can hear, hey, it's like the brilliant ones, you get an excuse for this. The reason why you're the way you are is because of this. And we pour all the resources that we have to support them, to stabilize them. And then the other kids are not given the same kind of support, but are considered to be something different. But that's one of my concerns with respect to how we treat these children differently. The second one, though, is when these kids move from 4th and 5th grade with their social emotional needs, how do we support them when they go into middle school and high school? Is that still that support that continues, or that's it? And what is the feedback by tracking these children to see how their academic needs in comparison and correlation with our social emotional needs apply? How do we do that?
Yeah.
We just let them go?
I think that is one of the gaps that we had identified, right? And so as we look at transition into 9th grade, one of the ideas, again, we throw it out there for conversation and in future planning is, what would it look like to aggregate those students onto one Pony Center, to provide counseling support to those students, and so they're not filtered through all of the different Pony Centers, but we can have some concentrated work with the AP and the counselor in those regards of the individual needs that emerge. I do think BAR at the high school does a great job in identifying the student strengths and building that and connecting relationships with that. And so to some degree, some of those pieces are built in, but we can learn about different ways of doing that. I think for our elementary students who are in their elementary schools, they have access to the social workers within the building. They have access to the green rooms. They have access to a lot of the supports, including BAR, including some of the SEL and the Second Steps curriculum, and those kinds of pieces actually that our GATE 4-5 kids don't have access to those same kinds of programs. So I think when you look at the range of services that are provided in SEL, it does look different from a middle school model, high school model, elementary, and GATE is its own separate piece as well.
But it's the outcome, though. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
It's the outcome. So the GATE kids have the same kind of issues like the kids, all the other kids. But what is the outcome? Because I've never heard of a GATE kid being suspended. for social emotional issues. You understand what I'm saying? But that's not the case with the other kids. So it's the kind of support that we give and the expectations from each one of these different groups. The GATE kids are provided with all the necessary support, even if they're still having those social emotional problems. There's a reason why they're having social emotional problems, but not the other kids. So I'm just saying that the support in terms of consistency as to how we treat these children because of where they are and where they're not is not the same. We spend a lot of money with the GATE kids, a lot of money. But the outcome in terms of how we support these two different groups is different. That's all I'm saying. So it's paying attention, because there are kids that are not in the GATE program that have come out of our school system and are doing fantastic out there, extremely intelligent, doing great things. But the question is, did we fail them by not recognizing that just because they had social-emotional problems? So there are kids that we know today that were considered to be troublesome kids, but turned out to be exceptional kids academically and doing great things out there. So there's something missing, and so that's what I'm just trying to say, that we pay attention to all this in terms of how we treat our children.
I think we're seeing more varied needs out of our GATE kids with that twice exceptionality that we maybe didn't see before. That was one of the comments of the principals, that the needs are a little bit different. And that has seemed to change a bit, but also I think because of the needs as they move into the high school, we see that they're not given a different, they all have access to counselors or social workers, but there isn't really that specialized attention. We hope, I think that mental health and SEL need is a need across for everyone. And we have to individualize those approaches as best we can to help meet the needs that they're presenting. So whether that be our gifted student, our struggling student, there's all kinds of issues out there that we need to, that's a challenge for all, I think, and continues and will continue to be. And we have to be creative in how we can serve them all throughout their whole career. And the earlier intervention with those pieces, hopefully you prevent some latter pieces from occurring in high school. But I think that's just across the board, and we try with responsive classroom in the morning meeting and the focus on relationships and some of those interactive pieces. That's a tier 1 support that we try to provide, across the district. But it will continue to be a challenge to meet those SEL needs for everyone.
And I'm still struck at the just the lack of the socioeconomic diversity and the racial diversity in this program is concerning for me as a board director. I don't know. I just think that if this program is something that staff would recommend we continue, that's a concern that I strongly feel needs to be addressed in the way we're identifying children. Because as we have on one spectrum, achievement gaps that are widening, and then we're putting monetary resources behind programs that are kind of perpetuating that in a way, not directly, but indirectly, or maybe directly. I don't know. I just feel like we need to identify if this is something that staff comes to the board eventually and says, this is what we want to do to change the program. For me, I feel like, at least, I don't know about everyone else, that would need to be addressed. Just as would the consistency across the board, and all the things that mentioned here. I just think it's the busing costs, the consistency between special programs. Those are kind of the things that I'm worried about at my level. But I'm sure these evaluations give you guys a lot to think about as well. Just, it's just food for thought, and I'm very grateful to the staff in the GATE program, and it's, in that 4-5 program especially, that just seems to be doing an outstanding job, and just broadening my knowledge on the program has been interesting to have us walk through this. So if you have other questions, or direct them, I guess, to Dr. Funk, and he can pass those on to his team. And I'm sure we'll continue all these conversations and as we go on and head into other evaluations and ultimately revising our strategic plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
That is all we have on the agenda tonight. So thank you to everyone, and this meeting is adjourned.